Wasnerbucks et Jagdish Jaipal. Bonjour messieurs.
Bonjour Caroline, bonjour à tous. Jagdish Jaipal, bonjour.
Bonjour Nawaz, auditeurs et internautes, bonjour.
Oui, effectivement, c'est la grande rentrée parlementaire. Après quelques 3 mois de vacances, les parlementaires reprennent le chemin de l'hémicycle. Alors Jagdish Jaipal, pendant les vacances, pas de grands événements politiques, mais bien sûr la situation concernant le Covid-19 avec la situation sanitaire et économique, mais aussi la guerre en Ukraine avec les retombées sur le plan du pouvoir d'achat, le coût de la vie. Donc c'est un peu dans sa
Période d'incertitude.
Dans cet état d'esprit-là qui le parlementaire peut reprendre le chemin de l'hémicycle ce matin.
Oui, donc après 3 mois de vacances, dans une situation, nous ne pouvons pas dire de confusion, non, mais seulement d'incertitude, et surtout au niveau de l'avenir. Alors la séance pour démarrer avec hommage qui certainement pour rendre à l'ancien président et de la République, Karl Hoffmann, d'ailleurs il est député de numéro 16, Vakwa-Floréal. Également, il y a un décès de Ramnath Jita, qui est un des grands survivants de 1967, c'est-à-dire qui était élu en 1967 au moment où le pays c'est-à-dire l'indépendance des grandes élections. Alors maintenant, la séance de 2022, il peut démarrer avec la private notice question du leader de l'opposition, Xavier Duval, qui peut axer donc sur questions autour du projet de Waterpark de Bellemare, ce qui aujourd'hui donc appelle, c'est-à-dire le
Splash and Fun Leisure Park.
Splash and Fun Leisure Park. Alors, il y a 4 volets à la question. Quand projet rénovation pour compléter, montant qui peut dépenser. Également, s'il y a une étude du marché in faire avant lancement projet. Et en même temps, il y a un aspect important, 3e volet de la question, c'est Xavier Duval peut demander s'il y a une copie rapport l'audit interne pour déposer au Parlement, c'est-à-dire un audit comptable qui ne fait après réunion conseil d'administration de Splash and Fun Leisure Park le 2 juin 2021 et si l'affaire est référée à la police. Et là, ça a 2 aspects, 2 derniers volets de la question qui est très important parce que Xavier Duval peut demander le rapport interne qui est là-dedans dans ce rapport et qui fait bien réfère à la police. C'est là que le ministre de l'agro-industrie, Manish Kobin, pour besoin donne bonne réponse exactement. Donc, sur le contenu du rapport également, qui fait et qui concerné, qui besoin d'une enquête policière. Donc, c'est un peu, pas une surprise, mais c'est un petit peu les dessous de l'importance de la question de Xavier Duval comme leader de l'opposition. Alors, ce matin.
Alors, donc, ça donne une indication qui est probablement capable de quitte mal donne pour qu'ils avaient du mal demander est-ce qu'il y a une quitte affaire qui n'est référé à la police. Il fait mention de sa réunion du board du SIT datée du 2 juin 2021. C'est un projet de 380 millions de roupies et pour qu'ils avaient du mal venir avec un tel PNQ pour la rentrée parlementaire et surtout s'il lui demandait c'est dans qu'est-ce qui ne référait à la police. Donc il paraît qu'il y a quitte Maldon, soupçon de Maldon autour de sa dossier-là. Nous vous connaissons un peu plus au cours de la PNQ.
Oui, et en même temps, nous bien rappelons à mon auditeur qui est le Waterpark de Bellemare. Alors, Splash and Fun Leisure Park, je redis, il est fermé pendant 6 ans. Alors, réouvert le 17 octobre 2019. Alors, la rénovation, donc, Manawaz fait dire, au coût d'environ 380 millions de roupies, il est fermé après 2 incidents malheureux, quand il y a des enfants, 2 victimes, donc, qui trouvent la mort. Fermé en 2014, réouvert donc. Maintenant, l'ancien ministre de l'agro-industrie, Maïn Siratan, qui déjà répond à une question concernant les travaux qui sont en cours, les étudiants finissent en retard et surtout au niveau de delivery de matériaux, c'est-à-dire pour les fournisseurs. Maintenant, au niveau des commentaires qui fait, au niveau, c'est-à-dire le TripAdvisor, un étranger qui vient visite, qui passe un moment au Waterpark de Bellemare, je suis assez critique au niveau de l'organisation, je dirais le service de food court laisse à désirer, il est très lent. Il y a même quelqu'un, un étranger qui n'écrit qu'il fait besoin d'attendre 40 minutes pour gagner un burger pour ses enfants. Donc là, c'est-à-dire le Waterpark, il n'a pas pu fonctionner, il est fermé à nouveau, il a les autres travaux. Et ensuite, concernant ma question, Nawaz, aujourd'hui, pour la première fois, Finena, ma question fait par tirage au sort. C'est-à-dire entre les deux whips du gouvernement, chief whip du gouvernement et le whip de l'opposition. Donc, il y a une question qui finit faire par tirage au sort, c'est qui peut permettre au Premier ministre donc, de répondre à certaines questions parce que lui-même, il y a 18 questions qu'il a adressées, les 102 questions et qui figurent à l'ordre du jour du Parlement, 18 questions. Et également, il y a à l'ordre du jour, à l'agenda, 4 projets de loi qui concernent protection drapeau pays. Également, donc, l'hymne national, un amendement qui a besoin, au niveau de ça, la loi-là, Town Country Planning et Audit Bill. Donc, autant de questions qui peuvent évoquer. Et là, nous pouvons suivre également le comportement du speaker parce que l'opposition peut demander qu'il ait besoin et impartial.
Voilà, au cause de l'hymne national Jagdish, l'hymne national qui peut retentir au sein de l'hémicycle, c'est le début de la séance.
Announcement.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with deep regret that we learned of the demise of former President Karl August Hoffmann, who was also a honorable member of this House. We were also saddened to hear of the loss of 3 former members of Parliament since this Assembly last met in December 2021. Mr. Jaishwar Raj Dayal, on 19th December 2021, at the age of 72. Mr. Dinesh Mandil, on 15th January 2022, at the age of 69. And Mr. Ramnath Jita, on 28th of February 2022, at the age of 92. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with profound sadness that I address the House to pay tribute to late Mr. Karl August Hoffmann, GCSK, former President of the Republic and former Member of Parliament, who passed away on 12 March 2022 at the age of 81. Mr. Karl Hoffmann, as he was commonly known, was born on 25th November 1940 in Portruis in a poor family of 7 children. For his primary education, he attended the Girls' Government School and the Chandeleur Government School in Portruis. Since his family could not afford to pay for his secondary education, he chose to compete for a scholarship in order to pursue his studies further. He won the government-awarded Mechanical Engineering Apprenticeship Scholarship in 1956 and secured a seat at the prestigious Royal College School, then known as La School, and the Technical College of L'Oréal. To acquire practical knowledge and experience, he was trained at the then Government Railway Department, upon the completion of which, in 1963, he was awarded a certificate in mechanical engineering issued by the government of Mauritius. Mr. Hoffmann also held a diploma in social and political science from the Claver House in London. Mr. Hoffman took up employment at the Daily L'Express newspaper as technician in the composition department. In 1979, he left La Sentinelle as plant and personnel manager and joined l'Imprimerie Père Laval as director until 1983. He thereafter took up employment at the Daily Le Socialiste as director, a position he held until 1986. Mr. Hoffman always had a keen interest in social and voluntary work. At the age of 17, he joined the Jeunesse ouvrière chrétienne, and as such, he has been a coordinator of activities within the Indian Ocean Islands from 1966 to 1969. He left the Jeunesse ouvrière chrétienne in 1969. Thereafter, Mr. Hoffman was entrusted the presidency of the Commission of Lay Apostolate by the then Bishop of Port Louis. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the political front, Mr. Hoffman started his career in 1976 and stood as candidate for several general elections. In December 1976 itself, he ran for the general election in constituency number 1, Grand River Northwest and Port Louis West, under the banner of the Union démocratique mauricienne, but was not returned. In June 1982, he ran for the general election in constituency number 17, Cupip and Midlands, under the banner of the MMM-PSM Alliance, and was returned as third member. On 20th of March 1983, Mr. Hoffman was appointed as Minister of Economic Planning and Development. In August 1983, he ran for the general election in constituency number 16, Vacua and Floréal, under the banner of the MSM Labour Party Alliance, and was returned as first member. On 17th of April 1984, Mr. Hoffman was assigned the ministerial portfolio for local government and cooperatives. From January 1986 to August 1987, Mr. Hoffman held the ministerial portfolio for social security, national solidarity, and reform institutions. He was also assigned the portfolio of local government from 24th July to 8th August 1986. In August 1987, he ran for the general election in constituency number 16, Vacua and Floréal, under the banner of the MSM Mauritius Labour Party Alliance, but was not returned. He was, however, allocated an additional seat under the best loser system. From November 1988 to August 1991, Mr. Hoffman was the chief government whip. In September 1991, he ran for the general election in constituency number 16, Vacua and Floréal, under the banner of the MSM-MMM Alliance, and was returned as third member. From October 1991 to July 1994, he held the ministerial portfolio for social security and national solidarity. From September 1994 to December 1995, he held the ministerial portfolio for labor and industrial relations. In 1995, he ran for the general election in constituency number 16, Vacua and Floréal, under the banner of the MSM-RMM Alliance, but was not returned. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Hoffman was one of the founding members of the MSM party and has been the Secretary General thereof from 1987 to 1991. Thereafter, in 1996, Mr. Hoffman became President of the MSM Party, a position he held until 2002, when he retired from active politics. Mr. Hoffman had been a guide and confidant for me and many other members of the MSM during all the time he served the party from 1983 to 2002. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 25th February 2002, Mr. Hoffman was elected President of the Republic of Mauritius, and he was elevated to the rank of Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean on 8th of March 2002. He served the country in this high office until 1st October 2003. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Hoffman has been the recipient of many other titles and honors. On 25th August 2002, he was conferred the title of Honorary Freeman of the City of Port-Louis. On 13th September 2002, he was conferred the title of Honorary Freeman of the City of Maputo. On 21st May 2003, he was conferred the title of Honorary Freeman for the town of Tampon, Réunion Island, Republic of France. On 26th of June 2003, he attended the commemoration of the 43rd Independence Anniversary Day of Madagascar and was conferred the Grand Croix de Première Classe de l'Ordre National de Madagascar. In 2004, he became the Lloyd G. Balfour African President in Residence and continued to promote Mauritius and Africa at the international front. And in 2006, he became a founder member of the Forum for Former African Heads of State and Government, Africa Forum. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Hoffman was imbued with the qualities of a staunch patriot, a fighter, an honest and disciplined person and politician who demonstrated a high sense of responsibility in all the positions he served the country and his fellow citizens. From very humble beginnings, he rose to become head of state, and his destiny was such that his journey ended on the National Day. That is testimony of his greatness. With the demise of Karl Hoffman, the country has lost a loyal and trustworthy servant, a man who loved his motherland and who contributed in his own way to craft a better future for our country. His achievements and memories will be cherished forever. He will remain a source of inspiration for all those who persevere against all odds and believe in inclusive development and shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I request you to kindly direct the clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the members of the bereaved family of late Karl August Hoffman, particularly to his son, Gilles Bernard. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I fully associate myself with the tribute made by the Honourable Prime Minister to late Mr. Karl Hoffman, GCSK, former President of the Republic and former Member of Parliament. And on behalf of the opposition, may I request the clerk to convey our condolences to the bereaved family.
Honourable members, I associate myself with the tribute paid to the memory of late Mr. Karl August Hoffman, GCSK, former President of the Republic and former Member of Parliament, by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Leader of Opposition, and I direct the clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Jayeshwar Raj Dayal, CSK, PDSM, QPM, was born on 7th of January 1949 in Karolalian. After his studies, he joined the then Mauritius Police Department as police constable in 1971. In 1972, he became cadet inspector and was one of the first Mauritians to be commissioned as a military officer in the United Kingdom at the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst. In 1976, he was trained as helicopter pilot in France. In 1977, he took command of the helicopter department as pilot in command in Mauritius. In 1985, Mr. Dayal completed his postgraduate military studies at the Defense Services Staff College of Camberley in the United Kingdom. On 10th July 1986, he assumed office as commanding officer of the Special Mobile Force. In 1991, he was conferred the Queen Police Medal, the highest police distinction in the Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Dayal attended high-level trainings in various institutions, such as FBI Washington and New Orleans, KGB Moscow, Scotland Yard UK, Interpol, and military and police institutions in India, Italy, Switzerland, France, United Kingdom, and Singapore. On 31st of August 1994, Mr. Dayal was appointed Commissioner of Police. On 12th of March 1995, he was elevated to the rank of Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean for outstanding contribution to the Mauritius Police Force. Mr. Speaker, sir, after leaving the Mauritius Police Force in 2000, Mr. Dayal started his political career and founded the Mouvement Démocratique National Raj Dayal. In September 2000, he ran for the general election in constituency number 10, Montagne Blanche and Grand River South East, under the banner of his party, but was not returned. In December 2003, he ran for the by-election in constituency number 7, Piton and Rivière-du-Rempart, under the banner of his party, but was not returned. In July 2005 and May 2010, he ran for the general elections in constituency number 10, Montagne Blanche and Grand River South East, under the banner of his party, but was not returned. In December 2014, he ran for the general election in constituency number 9, Flac and Bon-Accueil, under the banner of l'Alliance Les Peuples, and was elected as first member. On 15th of December 2014, he was appointed Minister of Environment, Sustainable Development, and Disaster and Beach Management, a post which he held until 23rd of March 2016. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I request you to kindly direct the Clerk of the National Assembly to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the members of the bereaved family of Jaishwar Raj Dayal. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I again fully associate myself with the tribute made by the Honourable Prime Minister to late Mr. Raj Dayal, former Member of Parliament, former Commissioner of Police, and also, therefore, on behalf of the whole opposition, request the Clerk to convey our condolences to the bereaved family.
Honourable members, I associate myself with the tribute paid to the memory of late Jaishwar Raj Dayal, CSK, PQSM, QPM, former Member of Parliament, by the Honourable Prime Minister and Honourable Leader of Opposition, and I direct the Clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Dinesh Mandil was born on 29th October 1952 in Port Louis. In 1969, Mr. Mandil joined the office of his father, Mr. Hari Mandil, a notary public, as a notary's clerk. In 1977, he contested the municipal council elections as an MMM candidate and was elected municipal councillor for Port Louis. Mr. Mandil successfully contested the municipal council elections for Port Louis in 1982, 1985, 1988, and 1991. From 23rd December 1986 to 30th October 1988, he served the capital as Deputy Lord Mayor and became Lord Mayor on 28th November 1989, a position which he held until 22nd November 1990. In August 1983, Mr. Mandil ran for the general elections in constituency number 4, Port Louis North and Mont Long, under the banner of the MMM and was elected as third member. In August 1987, he stood as candidate in the general election in constituency number 4, Port Louis North and Mont Long, under the banner of l'Union MMM MTD FTS, but was not returned. From 1991 to 1995, Mr. Mandil held the post of Vice Chairperson of the National Remuneration Board. In 2000, he was appointed advisor to the Minister of Environment, a position he held till 2005. Mr. Mandil is also remembered for his contribution in the social and cultural fields. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I request you to kindly direct the clerk of the National Assembly to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the members of the bereaved family of late Dinesh Mandil.
I associate myself with the tribute made by the Honourable Prime Minister to late Mr. Dinesh Mandil, former Member of Parliament, and on behalf of the opposition, I again request the clerk to convey our condolences to the bereaved family.
Honourable members, I associate myself with the tribute paid to the memory of late Mr. Dinesh Mandil, former Member of Parliament, by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Leader of Opposition, and I direct the clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Ramnath Jita, G-O-S-K, was born on 13th June 1930 in Richmond. In 1951, he started his teaching career at the Bourgeoisie College. Having personally experienced difficulties to access education, since most secondary schools were located in towns in those days, Mr. Jita was determined to provide educational opportunities to the youths of the FLAC region. In 1956, he founded the Eastern College, later renamed as the Professor Basdeo Bisundayal College in Central FLAC. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Jita had a keen interest in social work and politics. In 1958, he joined the Independent Forward Bloc, and in 1963, ran for the general elections in constituency number 19, Grand River South East, but was not elected. From 1964 to 1967, he served the Village Council of Central FLAC as president. He has also played a significant role in the agricultural sector. In the 1960s, Mr. Jita campaigned for the rights of the small planters which led to the creation of the Mauritius Small Planters Association. In 1963, he became president of the association, a post he held till 1976. Mr. Jita was fully engaged in socio-cultural activities. He has also been an active member of the Mauritius Sanatan Dharma Temples Federation. In August 1967, Mr. Jita ran for the 1967 general elections in constituency number 9, Flac and Bon Accueil, under the banner of the Independence Party and was elected as first member. Mr. Jita held the ministerial portfolio for information and broadcasting from 1967 to 1969. Thereafter, following a split in the government coalition, he joined the ranks of the opposition. From April 1975 to October 1976, Mr. Jita served as chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. In December 1976, he ran for the 1976 general elections in constituency number 9, Flac and Bon Accueil, under the banner of the Independent Forward Bloc, but was not elected. Mr. Jita continued to manage the Eastern College and devoted himself to educational activities. In 1980, he joined a distance learning program from Punjab University and was later awarded a Bachelor of Arts degree. From 1982 to 1986, he served as president of the Administrative Council of the DAV College in Port Louis, while also being in charge of the Eastern College. On 12th of March 2011, Mr. Jita was elevated to the rank of Grand Officer of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean for his long and distinguished service in the fields of education and politics. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I request you to kindly direct the Clerk of the National Assembly to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the members of the bereaved family of late Ramnath Jita.
Mr. Speaker, I fully associate myself with the tribute made by the Honourable Prime Minister to late Mr. Ramnath Jita, former Member of Parliament. And again, on behalf of the opposition, may I request the Clerk to convey our condolences to the bereaved family.
Honourable members, I associate myself with the tribute paid to the memory of late Mr. Ramnath Jita GOSK, former Member of Parliament by the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Leader of Opposition, and I direct the Clerk to convey the deep condolences of the Assembly to the bereaved family. I have an announcement. Honourable members, you will recall that on 8 December 2020 and 18 May 2021, respectively, I informed the House that my attention had been drawn to the fact that some honourable members had expressed concerns in regard to the manner in which notices of parliamentary questions are being received by the Clerk of the National Assembly and the way same are being treated prior to finding the order in which they appear on the notice of questions. I also drew the attention of the House to the fact that the procedure of giving notice of parliamentary questions is hence governed by Standing Order 24, and that the internal arrangement at the Clerk's office is purely an administrative matter. In effect, the order in which parliamentary questions have been appearing on the notice of questions were determined by the order in which same were being received, in other words, on a first-come, first-served basis. In the light of the aforementioned, I invited the whips of both sides of the House to thrash out the issues with all the stakeholders and submit concrete suggestions to review the process. I have to inform the House that I received a written agreement dated 18th March 2022, co-signed by the Honorable Chief Government Whip and the Honorable Whip of the Opposition, to the effect that parliamentary questions of which notice are given for a particular Tuesday sitting be the subject of a drawing of lot for the purpose of determining the order in which same would appear on the notice of questions, and that same would be conducted in the office of the Clerk of the National Assembly in the presence of the Honorable Government Chief Whip or any government representative, MP, and the Honorable Whip of the Opposition or any Honorable Opposition representative MP. Copy of the said agreement is hereby being tabled. I agreed to the implementation of the said agreement pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 77, which reads as follows. The Speaker shall have power to regulate the conduct of business in the Assembly in all matters not provided for in these orders. And the notice of questions for today's sitting contained parliamentary questions set in the order determined by the drawing of lot conducted on Wednesday last. Moreover, should honorable members have further queries on the matter, they are kindly invited to see me privately in my office. I thank you for your attention.
Papers have been laid. Questions?
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, sir, my question is addressed to the Honourable Attorney General, Minister of Agro-Industry and Food Security. Whether, in regard to the project for the refurbishment and upgrading of the Splash and Fun Leisure Park at a cost of over 380 million rupees, as at to date, he will, A, for the benefit of the House, obtain from the Sugar Investment Trust information from Sugar Investment Trust Leisure information as to 1, the expected completion date thereof, indicating the quantum of the funds required for completion. 2, if any market research was effected prior to the start of the project, and if so, by whom. And B, state if he will obtain and table a copy of the report of the internal auditor following the Board of Directors meeting of 2nd June 2021, and C, state whether any matter has been referred to the police for inquiry.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Sugar Investment Trust is established under Section 3 of the Sugar Industry Efficiency Act. The trust is a body corporate, and for the purposes of the Companies Act, the SIT is considered as a company. The objects of the trust are set out in Section 4 of the Sugar Industry Efficiency Act. It may, therefore, invest inter alia in, I quote, leisure, entertainment, and gaming. As such, the board of the SIT in October 1999 set up a subsidiary as a private company, namely SIT Leisure Limited, for the purpose of investment in the then Belmore Water Park, constructed in the year 2000 and which opened on 4th December 2000. The Belmore Water Park was rebranded as the Splash and Fun Leisure Park in 2019. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the refurbishment started in 2018 for an estimated cost of 350 million rupees. Refurbishment was completed in 2019, except for one item, namely the boomerang, which has been completed up to 68% only, as the park was closed due to COVID-19 pandemic from 19 March 2020 to 15 October 2020, and from 15 March 2021 to 29 October 2021, and again from 12 November 2021 to 29th January 2022. I am informed that the board is contemplating to complete the Boomerang item of the refurbishment subject to availability of funds. With regard to the market research, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that a business review was undertaken by firm PwC in 2016 for the SIT and its subsidiaries. I am further informed that for the Waterpark project specifically, a business review was carried out by firm KPMG. With regard, Mr. Speaker, sir, to the internal auditor report, I am informed that following a board meeting of the SIT Leisure Limited held on 2nd of June 2021, the board members requested the internal auditor to prepare a comprehensive report on the 350 million rupees spent on the refurbishment of the park and the construction of the Boomerang. I am informed that the report of the internal auditor was submitted to the board of SIT Leisure Limited on 23rd of March 2022. This report is still being examined by the board. I am further informed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there is not only one internal auditor's report, but other connected internal auditor report on the refurbishment. All these reports are also being examined by the board. I wish to reiterate, Mr. Speaker, sir, that SIT Leisure Limited is a private company, as I have explained earlier. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the question of whether to table the internal auditor report, I beg your pardon, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the police inquiry, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that as at date, no case has been reported to the police for inquiry in connection with the refurbishment and upgrading of the leisure park. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, with regard to whether the report of the internal auditor should be tabled in the House, I wish to inform the House that the report has not yet been officially submitted to my ministry. I am also informed that the Independent Commission Against Corruption is investigating in this case, and therefore, by virtue of Section 81 of the Prevention of Corruption Act, the said investigation and all information surrounding it is confidential.
May I ask the Honourable Minister, I thank him for his concise reply. May I ask the Honourable Minister concerning the famous Boomerang, which has been completed about two-thirds for a total cost of 76 million rupees, I'm sure he well knows. Needs maybe 35, 50 million rupees more to complete. It is currently an eyesore. I can submit photos. Is the Minister honestly telling the House that he is not sure whether the 76 million rupees are a project cost 70 million to date is going to be completed, or otherwise the money is just going to be thrown down the drain? Because he said that it is subject to available funds.
The situation, Mr. Speaker, so the SIT Leisure Limited, as I said, is a private company which is governed by its board of directors. I do not have ministerial responsibility on the way the company is being managed by the board of directors. However, in the spirit of transparency, what I can share with the House is that, as far as I am informed, the business plan was that revenue would have been generated from the operation of the park. That revenue would have funded the remaining part of the refurbishment project. As I said, the park had to be closed not on one but on 3 occasions. Let me give the dates again. 19 March 2020, after the detection of the first COVID cases, and then the park was reopened in October 2020. However, it was again closed in March 2021, following the second lockdown, and it was reopened on 30th October 2021. And then came November 2021 with Omicron, it was closed again. The park has reopened. The figures, as far as I am informed, show that when the park is in operation, it generates sufficient revenue. Now, when will the park operate fully, 100%? I cannot say, because the situation is very volatile.
Speaker, sir, the Boomerang was meant to be completed in December 2019, 3 months before the first lockdown. The amount spent was 76 million rupees and has been stopped because of financial constraints. Is it seriously telling us that the future of a project having cost 76 million rupees is solely reliant on this SIT being able to generate some funds from what has been historically loss-making concern, the water park? Otherwise, the money will just go down the drain?
If the Honourable Leader of Opposition, Mr. Speaker, is suggesting that there has been some mismanagement, then the Board of Directors will have to take its responsibility. As I have mentioned, the Board has already asked, it is the Board which asked for the internal auditor report. They are still examining, not one, but I'm informed there are other internal auditor reports as well. So I will say let the Board of Directors shoulder their responsibility, and if there has been, in case there has been mismanagement, the Board will know what to do.
I'd like to remind the Minister that there is a PS of his ministry and also a PAS of his ministry who has historically sat on this board, on these boards, and therefore his ministry should have all the historical information necessary for him to be apprised of what is happening, and I'm surprised that his ministry says they don't know what is happening. Now, Mr. Speaker, I visited the park. The park as it stands, Mr. Speaker, the Boomerango is unfinished. The bumper car is out of order, needs 20 million rupees. The 7D cinema needs another 14 or 15 million rupees to be put in order. There's a VR games not working. The carousel is not working. The pirate boat, although recently installed, is totally rusted. 400 million rupees, Mr. Speaker, nearly has been spent. You can't see anything for that money that has been spent. I'm just asking the Minister whether the money has not been embezzled, right, left, and center, and this is why I'm asking for a police inquiry, because there's nothing to show for nearly 400 million rupees of funds spent.
Yeah, I know the Honourable Leader of Opposition visited the park on Friday. I thought it was on Friday, but never mind. I had the occasion of visiting the park in October 2020, but not recently. As I said, what the Leader of Opposition is asking is for a police inquiry, but as I have informed the House, there is an ongoing investigation by the ICAC. I don't want to say more. What I can also say is that this is probably precisely why the board has asked the internal auditor to produce a report on the refurbishment. So let the board examine that internal auditor report, and let also the ICAC pursue its investigation.
There's at least 100 million rupees more required, and I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister whether he's going to put that money into the water park without this time having a proper market research. Because as everybody knows, a business review is not a market research. And the water park has historically been losing money. Someone decides to put 400 million rupees or more in a project and does not do a market research to see whether there is any chance of it making money.
We are not, let it be clear, we are not talking of public funds here. The SIT Leisure Limited is a private company. The Waterpark refurbishment project has, if I'm not mistaken, 80%, 79 or 80% of debt financing from bank and proprietary funds for 19 or 20%. We're not talking of public funds. Let there be no confusion about that. Furthermore, government is not injecting any public funds in the refurbishment project.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister has historically been the PS of the Ministry of Agriculture and the DPS on that board because there happens to be 55,000 petits planteurs who are shareholders in that company following an act of parliament passed in this House. If the minister is going to wash his hands entirely of the issue, then why have the PS and the DPS of his ministry historically sat on this board? And I can give their names if you want.
Yes, you're correct to say that the petits planteurs are represented on the board of directors. This is clearly spelled out in the Sugar Industry Efficiency Act in Section 5, which lists down the composition of the board of directors. And in fact, when you look at Section 5 of the Sugar Industry Efficiency Act, the board of the SIT consists of 9 directors, Mr. Speaker, sir, out of whom only 3 are appointed by the minister. The majority of directors, that is 6, are appointed by the Assembly of Delegates, that is those who are elected by the petits planteurs and who are delegated, and they are from various sectors. This Assembly of Delegates is composed of delegates from the 4 factory areas. 6 representatives from each of the 4 makes 24 Assembly of Delegates. It is wrong to believe that government has a majority on that board of the SIT. It has never been the case. The majority of 6 over 9 directors composed of the representative of the delegates who are elected. That should be very clear in the minds of one and all.
Mr. Speaker, it is also clear that de facto, with the PS and the DPS of the ministry on that board, it is the ministry and the ministers from then on, from the past, who have controlled that board. I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister. I'm surprised that he says that he has not read a copy of the internal audit report. Will he inform himself? In fact, Mr. Speaker, will he check and see whether this internal audit report doesn't say that suppliers to SIT have been paid millions of rupees, in fact 22.7 million rupees, without any tender? Will he be surprised to say that amounts, large amounts, millions, have been paid to local contractors without board approval? In fact, Mr. Speaker, 3.5 million rupees were spent on accommodation, food and drinks and entertainment, 3.5 million rupees for foreign visitors. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, will you also check whether, in fact, the internal auditor doesn't say that 2.7 million rupees was paid to a contracting, although should have been paid to a contracting company, but was paid to a different individual, coming, Mr. Speaker, to a conclusion that, in fact, the SIT could have been accessory to a crime. All this is in the internal audit report, and he's saying he hasn't been given a copy of that report.
You're making statements too long time. Put your question. What you want from the minister?
I asked.
Okay. Minister?
Let me come on 2 points. First of all, on the control of the board. I reiterate what I've said earlier. Honourable Leader of Opposition keeps saying that the PS of the ministry used to sit on the board. Even if the PS used to sit on that board, I say again, the minister appoints only 3 persons over a total of 9 directors on the board of the SIT. That does not give the minister or the ministry a control over a board of 9 directors. That should be clear. Coming to the internal auditor report, let me say it again. It is the board members who ask for the internal auditor report. They must therefore have seen that there is a need for such an internal auditor report, in the light of which the Honourable Leader of Opposition mentions a number of specific matters. I will not go into the specific matters because these reports, together with the other internal audit report, are being examined by the board. Responsibility will rest with directors. I have also disclosed that I am informed there is an ongoing ICAC investigation. I will leave it at that. I will say no more for reasons of confidentiality in Section 81 of the PUCA.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister knows full well that it is only the new board appointed by himself when he took office, following the then Minister, Mr. Siratan. When he took office, it is then that the new board, seeing what has happened and the obvious embezzlement that has happened, asked the internal auditor to do the work. It is the new board, Mr. Speaker, not the old board. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to again ask the Honourable Minister to take cognizance of this internal audit report if he says he hasn't done so, because he has the responsibility of 55,000 long-suffering petits planteurs, artisans, pensioners. He has those people on his shoulder. We respect his decision to ask the internal auditor, because this is his decision, to ask the internal auditor to do the work. But he has to go further and look at the report and tell us what is going to be done following this report.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think I can only reiterate what I have said earlier. The work is being done. The report is here. I did not say I haven't taken cognizance of it. The report has not been sent officially to my ministry because it is still being examined by the board. I can say that I have asked for it following the PNQ. I have also asked for other information surrounding this whole matter. This is how I come to know that there is other internal audit report and the work is ongoing. It is premature to say what the investigation will reveal. I will say again, for reasons of confidentiality, I will say no more.
This project was done against all the established procedures in government, without tender, without architect, without supervising engineer, with nothing, all done au petit bonheur. Would he explain, Mr. Speaker, how come the then chairman of this company, SIT, Sugar Investment Trust and SIT Leisure, one Mr. Pritam Budan, has supervised all this bloody mess. And he has been promoted, Mr. Speaker, to now becoming chairman of Landscope Limited, which has 3 times more assets to deplete than Sugar Investment Trust. How can this gentleman now, as we speak, be sitting as chairman of Landscope?
Speaker, sir, I take objection to the fact that Honourable Leader of Opposition now starts to mention somebody's name here who is not in the House, who has been... It is established parliamentary practice that we do not reveal the names of persons, and for especially those who are not here to defend themselves. This is a cardinal rule of parliamentary practice. We should stick to this established practice. As I said again, if there has been mismanagement, the board will take its responsibility. And it is, once again, we should not create the confusion in the mind of people that SIT is a department of government. SIT is not a department of government or a ministry for that matter. When the Honourable Leader of Opposition says the established procedures of government have not been followed, SIT is not a department of government. You should not create this confusion in the minds of people.
The minister government has to take responsibility. They had a permanent secretary. I'm not giving the name of the poor lady. They have also another permanent secretary who replaced her, and a DPS sitting for all this time on these boards. And here we come, appointed by the then minister himself. And here we come, and government washes its hands completely of this fiasco, which is going to cost 480 million rupees to the small planters of Mauritius. Now, I'm going to ask one thing to the Honourable Minister. The SIT Leisure, now it owes 600 million rupees. 600 million rupees of petit planteur money, artisan money, pensioners' money.
Your question...
It owes that... Well, ask...
No, you're making a long statement.
Well, I'm going to ask a question in a moment.
Directly.
I'm going to ask as directly as I can. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Honourable Minister, what does he propose to do? Is government going to refund this 600 million rupees that has been thrown down the drain by SIT? And it is all money belonging to poor people of this country.
It is premature to say that money has been thrown down the drain, Mr. Speaker, sir. If there is anything to be done, the board has to take its responsibility. And furthermore, talking of the 55,000 chiplantaires and other shareholders, I will invite them through the Assembly of Delegates, which is created under Section 6 of the SIE Act, to also take its responsibility. The Assembly of Delegates appoint, as I say, 6 directors out of 9 on the board of the SIT. They have their say in the management of the company. They will also have to inquire, to ask questions in the appropriate forum.
All through its history, the SIT, Sugar Industry Trust, created by government in this House, has had problems. It used to have a huge turnover. At one point, 1.2, 1.3 billion rupees. Now the latest turnover, 200 million rupees. It has dwindled, Mr. Speaker, like a peau de chagrin. So what I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister now is a matter of policy. Whether it isn't time for us to review the way that SIC is managed, the way that the directors are appointed, so that for this huge amount of money that is still there, there is now a decent management and a decent board of directors who, however they may be appointed, professionally to manage money belonging to all these 55,000 people.
Yes, as a matter of policy, Mr. Speaker, sir, I can say, yes, I have had consultations for some time now in my ministry. Collectively, we believe a time has come to review the structure of SIT. Now, which form that will take, we are still having internal discussion. But there is indeed room for improvement after so many years, and especially after seeing facts and figures based on historical performance. So I am personally in favor of a review of the corporate structure. How will that happen? Whether it's coming in a specific legislation or in the forthcoming finance bill, we are still having internal discussions.
Last question, and then maybe my colleagues. I'm going to ask the Minister. The previous Minister who was supervised all this was promoted from Minister of Agriculture to Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, s'il vous plaît. The previous chairman, Pritam Budan, has been promoted to a much bigger company, Landscope Limited. Now, I've also received many representations from chiplanteur, principally, artisans, etc., calling this huge scandal Splashgate, and saying, Mr. Speaker, that they request, through me, through the opposition, a full commission of inquiry, not only on SIT Leisure Limited, c'est un petit marchand in this huge scandal, but on the whole forthcoming demise, I would say, of SIT itself, which, as I mentioned, has lost a huge amount of its profitability and is now paying a few cents only of dividends per share, a tenth of what it was paying before. Can we have a full-fledged commission of inquiry on Sugar Investment Trust?
I don't believe a commission of inquiry is called for, Mr. Speaker, sir. what can happen is the new delegates who have been recently elected, very recently, towards the end of last year. So there is a whole new assembly of delegates who have been elected. Elections are held in all the factory areas every 3 years. So that new body of assembly of delegates can ask whatever questions they wish to in their assembly of delegates and through their elected directors on the board. As insofar as the internal audit is concerned, there is, and the facts disclosed therein, there is, as I said, an inquiry ongoing at ICAC. La question de la commission d'enquête ne se pose pas, Monsieur le Président.
Prime Minister's question time. You have a question?
Following the replies given by the Honourable Minister, it stands to reason that there is collusion and incestuous relationship between the SIT Board of Directors and the Ministry. Am I to understand that one of the members appointed by the Minister, sitting as a director on the Board of SIT, is under investigation by ICAC? And would he tell the House the reason as to why he has not been asked to step down?
No, I take exception on the word collusion, Mr. Speaker, sir. I might not have heard the exact words used by an honourable member, but collusion certainly is not there between anybody and the ministry. I think the honourable member hasn't heard me earlier when I explained what is the structure of the SIT and how that board functions. If that is the case, then I'm indeed very pleased that you know the board structure. So there cannot be, therefore, in any way, any collusion whatsoever. Now, who is being investigated by ICAC? Which specific aspect? The honourable member knows very well. These are confidential, covered by Section 81 of the POCA, and I cannot therefore reveal. It's not a question of whether I can reveal or not. I don't even have the confidential information from ICAC.
Time over. Prime Minister's question time. Honorable.
Voilà donc autant pour cette première PNQ pour la rentrée parlementaire. Il concerne projet rénovation du parc aquatique de Bellemare, environ, pour nous donner plusieurs chiffres, 350 millions, 380 millions, 400 millions, par moment on donne 600 millions, en tout cas des centaines de millions de roupies dépensées dans ce projet de rénovation. Alors, Manish Gobin finit un petit peu l'accord de la prudence, il dit si il y a un mismanagement au niveau du board du SIT pour ce projet de rénovation du parc aquatique de Bellemare, eh bien, le board du SIT pour Bizin assume responsabilité. Ministre Manish Gobin dit que le fonds public pas involve là-dedans parce que SIT, c'est une compagnie privée. Vous avez Duval pas d'accord, il dit que le secrétaire permanent du ministère de l'agro-industrie, il siège le board SIC et donc le ministère Bizin Guetté qui peut passer au niveau de sa entité-là. Et le ministre Manish Gobin fin révélé à la Chambre Zodi qui l'ICAC peut enquête certains aspects de sa projet de rénovation. Fin un rapport de l'audit interne qui fin faire et il dit qu'il y avait les autres rapports encore qui le board fin commandité et à la lumière de ce rapport-là, l'ICAC peut faire une enquête. Il dit pas filmer caisse la police, mais l'ICAC peut faire une enquête. Vous avez le Duval catégorique, il dit que 400 millions de roupies fin embezzled. Donc pour lui, c'est un embezzlement, c'est un vol, c'est un détournement et il peut dire que la police besoin faire une enquête. Le député Arvin Boulel, il y a un instant, fin même demandé si un membre du board de la SIT peut faire l'objet d'une enquête de l'ICAC. Manish Gobin dit que tout ça c'est confidentiel et d'ailleurs il même pas ça l'information là. Alors le leader de l'opposition fin dire qu'il visite les lieux, c'est-à-dire le parc aquatique de Bellemare et il dit que pour tout ça l'argent qu'il dépensé là, il pas trouve il n'a pas trouvé l'avancée de travaux. Il pensait pour bien mettre en cause casse pour capable donc compléter travaux. Et il dit que c'est l'argent qui finissait dans le drain. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle il pensait finalement détournement de fonds. Alors 400 millions de roupies, Jagdish, c'est un gros montant. Et le ministre Manish Gobin fin concédé à la fin de la PNQ qui l'est fin arrivé pour revoir la structure du SIT. Il dit qu'il est en faveur donc d'une révision de la structure du SIT. Il fin rejette la demande pour une commission d'enquête. Il dit qu'il y a une enquête qui peut faire. Donc, à première vue, Jagdish, il paraît qu'il finira et n'a pas un soupçon de mal donne, sinon l'ICAC pas pour faire une enquête à la suite du rapport de l'audit interne.
Alors, deux aspects qui nous pouvons besoin considérer concernant la prise de position du ministre de l'Agro-Industrie, Manish Gobin, qui est également attorney général. Premièrement, c'est que le gouvernement a 3 représentants qui nommés par le ministre au sein du conseil d'administration, mais 6 les autres membres qui constituaient donc une majorité, ça 6 les autres là, sont choisis, sont élus de l'Assemblée générale par ban planteur et ban actionnaire de SIT. Alors donc, maintenant, on a la représentation du gouvernement, c'est là que Xavier Duval peut situer la responsabilité de l'État, du gouvernement.
Le gouvernement n'est pas capable de laver la main.
Lave la main, même si ce n'est pas les fonds publics, mais Xavier Duval peut dire qu'il y a environ 600 millions de roupies qui n'ont emprunté avec la banque, donc qui finit investi, et déjà 380 millions ou 400 millions d'après lui, c'est-à-dire le Waterpark pas pu fonctionner, et Xavier Duval cite beaucoup de supposés components qui font partie d'un Waterpark et qui donc pas pu opérer. Maintenant, en retour, le ministre Manish Gobin peut dire en 3 fois le Waterpark est bien fermé à cause du Covid, également là récemment, encore ensuite à cause des
oui, mais là,
travaux.
Jagdish, David Duval dit qu'il y a un travaux qui fini complété en décembre 2019,
Avant.
soit 3 mois avant le premier lockdown. Donc,
oui.
il peut dire que ça fait une traînée et il pensait qu'il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas correct. Par exemple, le boomerango, il est complété à seulement 68%. Et là, Manish Gobin dit qu'il pour qu'il y ait un fonds pour terminer les travaux du boomerango.
Encore 50 millions de roupies.
Le parc opéré,
Oui.
un casse avec operation, avec le revenu que l'opération du parc peut générer. C'est avec ça qu'il peut terminer les travaux, alors qu'il y a un gros budget qui finit mort. Donc la question qui se pose légitimement, Jagdish, où est passé l'argent?
Oui, 76 millions de roupies dépensés pour le boomerango et là, ils ont encore 50 millions de roupies et additionnellement pour ajouter dedans les Xavier Duval et donc puis évoque sa question qu'il a l'argent puis c'était puis dans l'eau donc c'est une dilapidation des fonds même si c'est pas public mais seulement c'est l'argent de l'actionnaire et des 55 000 petits planteurs. Mais le ministre Manish Gobin peut dire le board, le conseil d'administration, bien assume ses responsabilités. Ensuite, Xavier Duval, il donne certains détails concernant peut-être le rapport. Il veut dire qu'il y a 22,7 millions de roupies, c'est-à-dire dépensés avec ban suppliers, ban fournisseurs ou SIT, sans aucun appel d'offres. No tender, pas fin lance aucun tender. Alors, pas fin n'a aucun approval également donc au niveau des autorités. 3,5 millions de roupies dépensées, l'eau, c'est-à-dire entertainment, food et beverages à ban visiteurs étrangers. Et un autre cas côté les cités, 2,7 millions de roupies, une supposé payer à un contracteur et ça l'argent-là, il paid to an individual. Et là, Côte-Livine, avec sa question de nécessité, bien un rapport de la police. Et en retour, le ministre a annoncé qu'il l'ICAC, la commission anticorruption, déjà peut enquêter. Donc, oui, voilà, situation là, comment il était. 600 millions de roupies pour un petit planteur qui peut bien, donc, earmark dépenser, alors que le Waterpark pas peut fonctionner. Donc, combien de temps encore et ça pour durer? Alors là, le ministre peut dire c'est le board qui assume ses responsabilités. Donc, il laisse tout. Il n'est pas d'accord pour une commission d'enquête, mais il fait une demande avec le commissaire de police. Si la police a déjà initié l'enquête, il dit non, la police n'a pas encore fait rien. Maintenant, c'est sans doute c'est-à-dire le responsable de SIT, le nouveau board. Et là, Xavier Duval fait une différence entre l'ancien board qui était opéré sous Mahen Siratan quand il était ministre de l'agro-industrie et le nouveau board sous Manis Gobin. Il espérait que ce nouveau board-là pour aller encore plus loin pour capable faire l'enquête et trouve la lumière au bout du tunnel.
Et par contre, c'est SIT pour continuer à exister, qui peut arriver, quel est l'avenir même du SIT, parce que Manish Gobin dit à lui-même qu'il besoin revoir cette structure, est-ce qu'il peut exister dans sa forme actuelle, il dit peut-être besoin d'inquiéter au niveau de finance bill qui peut venir après la présentation du budget, donc paraît-il qu'il est capable de mettre l'annonce en ce sens, il dit qu'en ce moment, il peut faire une consultation en interne pour guetter qui manière pour revoir la structure du SIT. Donc ça c'est un autre aspect, mais l'aspect le plus important c'est l'enquête de l'ICAC, bien connaît que tout ça là en fin de passé, est-ce qu'il finit dans embezzlement et Arvin Boulel il pose la question, est-ce qu'un membre de SIT peut faire l'objet d'une investigation de l'ICAC, donc affaire à suivre, Jagdish.
Oui, et Xavier Duval, il mentionne également, c'est-à-dire l'ancien président du conseil d'administration de SIT, il fait une contrat, gagne une promotion. Aujourd'hui, il est président de Landscope Mauritius. Donc là, Xavier Duval mentionne Landscope, c'est une entité, une entreprise qui génère encore beaucoup plus d'argent, beaucoup plus d'activités parce qu'il concerne un gros développement foncier, un gros développement dans le secteur du morcellement et de l'immobilier.
Voilà, donc la séance se poursuit. Il y a pas mal de questions dans Prime Minister's Question Time et aussi amène à la tranche réservée donc au ministre. Et la question, par exemple, le Dubai Expo, Jagdish, ça aussi finit faire beaucoup de controverses. Question l'argent dépensé pour la mission récente au Chagos.
Au Chagos, c'est ça la première question que le Premier ministre, en principe, il a pour répondre. Il y a également une question du député d'Even Nagalingam concernant, il peut demander 6 élections municipales pour organiser et quand. Et ça, c'est deuxième question qui figure à l'ordre du jour. Ensuite, donc, nous bien signaler que Paul Béranger, Rajesh Bhagwan et Shakil Mohamed, je toujours suspens. Je pas assister à la réunion. Alors, besoin Rajesh Bhagwan possiblement capable de venir après 2 séances et Paul Béranger il a encore possiblement 3 séances et Shakil Mohamed pour capable bientôt retrouver sa place dans le Parlement. Donc, c'est une suspension qui remonte à l'année dernière, avant les vacances parlementaires qui ont commencé le 17 décembre 2021.
Et suite à ce PNQ, le leader de l'opposition pour animer un point de presse à 14h, l'autre c'est qu'il est qualifié de Splashgate, conférence de presse à suivre en direct sur la page Facebook du Défi Media Group. Donc les travaux se poursuivent, vous êtes capable de continuer les travaux là nos sites web, nos pages Facebook. Quant à nous, on prend congé de vous. Merci et à bientôt.